Welcome to the Awakening Process 101 podcast. In this podcast, we discuss topics including spirituality, emotional health and healing, and the meaning of awakening in the context of our modern lives. By sharing our own experience, our own process of awakening, what worked and what didn't. Our goal is to spark insights and plant seeds for you on your awakening journey. I'm Louise Jules Severine, a yoga teacher and the best friend of Pernilla Burke, the founder, the writer, the photographer of Awakening 101. Welcome.
And today, so how this podcast works is that Louise and I, we choose a theme, and then we go through an exploration process together. And today, our theme is running from pain, which none of us do.
No. I need to go now, by the way.
Yeah, you go running. So I guess we can start with just talking about what do we mean when we say running from pain? Like what do we mean when we have this, what does this theme mean? So maybe you can talk about what it looks like in your life when you notice that you're doing that, and then we can talk about my life, how I do it, and then we come back to sort of like the state of the world, because we are all running.
We're all running.
Some people more than others.
Yeah, but I think it's a wonderful topic, and for me, and I think also in general, we just like human beings, we are not happy when things are uncomfortable. Like we really would like, and I think that's that. I mean, in my Buddhist practice, that's also the mission of life is to become happy and be in ease in your body and grace in your life. You need to work to get there, and the only way to really heal yourself with all the traumas or whatever you want to call it that we bring into this life and that we create in this life, we need to look at the pain and we need to be able to embrace the pain to really work it through. And I think that we're not, in our society, we're not really broadened up. It's like, oh, I have a headache, take a painkiller, or give me a fix. That's what it's all about. Instead of saying, okay, I have a headache, maybe I should put myself on my bed and just try to relax and see if I could be with it. And that's what society brings us up to, that when something is uncomfortable, we need to run away from it. And that could be like, if I feel stress, I eat a little bit more and I push the feeling down, or, I'm feeling, oh, this is uncomfortable. He broke up with me. I need to go and run. And I'm not saying running is bad, and I'm not saying eating is bad. Everything is with moderation, but we do all these things unconsciously because we really want to just get away from it. And I think that the only, and you know all about this, Pernilla, you guided me through that too, and also in my therapy, like when I can be in uncomfortable feelings, now I say it again, it becomes quite interesting what's happened. Yeah, but it feels like the feeling is going to, eat me up. But the feeling is not going to kill me if I don't take action on the feeling, of course. If I just sit with it, it's quite interesting to see what happens with my body energetically, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I think an access to be in the pain or in uncomfortable situation or feeling, it's to be a little bit curious. Like if you have that attitude, like going into, okay, let's see, what is this all about? Instead of,
it depends on what it is, right? It depends on the severity of the pain.
Of course.
So you can never, like if someone dies that you love, you're not going to be able to say, oh, how can I regard these feelings as interesting, right? So there's like different levels, and of course we all know that. That's David Hawkins, one of my legendary teachers. He talks about this in his book, The Letting Go Pathway to Surrender, that sometimes the pain is so great that we're not able to process them right away.
No.
And that's when calls it do something that distracts you. So it's not necessarily escaping the pain. It's just consciously saying, I cannot deal with this right now. I gotta
But
find
that's
something.
an awareness in that. So that's
Yeah,
like,
there's an awareness
yeah.
in that.
So then you
But
don't,
but
then you don't run from the pain. Then you
no,
do
not
that. You
actually.
take a decision of, okay, I
Yeah.
can't cope with this right now, so let's do something else.
So that's the but I just wanted to underline that like
Mm,
we there's different levels. But I say when we started talking about the subject matter running from pain, basically Louise and I think that's what we've done our whole lives. We're
mm,
always on the move.
mm,
And that doesn't have to be anything that is like weird or crazy. It's like we're just on the move. We're doing things all the time. And I think it took me almost up until 5 or 6 years ago when I started noticing, like, why am I always on the move? Like, I never sit down.
mm.
But it's always been to run away from the present moment and what I'm feeling. And I think that it started, when we were younger and we didn't know how to cope with feelings. So the first escapism was drinking and drugs.
Mm.
And then when I got sober, it turned into other things. Like for me in the beginning, I just was super busy in the first year of recovery. I was always out doing things.
Can I pop in with
Okay.
one thing there,
Yeah.
Amala? I even think it starts before the drinking and drugs.
Of course. Of
It's
course.
it
I'm saying,
start
yeah.
yeah,
We
for
didn't
me it
have a
start.
solution.
No, but it started unconsciously. It started for me to be a people pleaser, to be there for everyone else except
Oh, that's
feeling
interesting.
myself. So with all the third, I can see it so clearly, like
That's
from
so
the
interesting.
from fifth, sixth, seventh grades. I would say it started unconsciously, even like I see it on my daughter now too. It started with the horses. I escaped to the horses of not
Yeah.
being home. And then I got
Yeah.
this, and then it started with being a people pleaser, being there for all the other people and not feeling myself. And then when you took me to Ibiza, that love with the drugs. No, but that's like I can really see it clearly now when we're talking about it. But I just want to mention one thing before we go back to you, Pernilla, that I don't think either that we can compare pain. Like we can't say that her pain is bigger than mine or greater than mine
No,
because
no.
we you
Everybody
can't
has a
measure,
different.
like, yeah, exactly. I can compare my own pain to my experience for previous pain. I think that's also important to underline that whatever pain you feel or we feel, it's in relation to your own experience.
Yeah, and I think that also something that I want to underline is that there's nothing wrong if you want to get away from your pain. That it's completely okay to do what you have to do unconsciously or with awareness.
Mm,
We're not saying don't do this is bad if you do this. That's not what we're saying. All it's just this for Louise and I think in the last 1 or 2 years, we've really this issue with running from pain has come up a lot, and
mm,
we both are working on it in our own lives, and that's why we want to explore it together with you. So it's not, I mean, I do it still. I'm trying to process this thing and get out of this habit because I've also realized as there's other subjects the same, like I'm on a spiritual path and it's not like just a light path. It's serious business for me. And I realized that if I keep running, then there'll be a little bit of a glass ceiling
mm,
to prevent me from it's not like a level like I'm rising up to the next level. It's just continue my path. There's a bump in the road when you find that there's things that sort of become a little bit like they're not blocks, but they're sort of they're messing with your spiritual progress. And this is one of those things where we're so afraid to sit with that pain, and we can use meditation and pranayama is an excellent example. Like I'm not feeling well, I'm going to use it because it shifts your focus,
mm.
shifts your state of being so quickly. So how do we find a middle way through that, like we can use our practices like meditation and yoga, all those things, to start healing our emotional traumas, our pain. And sometimes we can use it to also escape the pain. So how do we recognize where we are? So if that makes any sense.
But can
I have a couple of examples, but you talk first.
Yeah, before you do examples, I just want to ask, when we're running from pain, that must be an unconscious choice.
I think it is in the beginning.
Because if not, we're not running from pain.
Yeah.
Then you distract yourself from pain, or it must be. And running from life or running through life. I mean, it's like
running through life. That's the one.
Yeah, and when you told me last summer, me and Pernilla went to an hotel, and in the morning we were checking out, and all of a sudden Pernilla's like, "What are you running for? You need to slow down." But that was my mantra for that summer and for the whole fall and winter, because I you really caught me in a moment there. It's that doing thing. It's that, like you said, we're always running through life. But if I look at my day, I wake up, I prepare myself, I do my meditation, I do my chanting, I prepare breakfast and the food package for the kids, I wake them up, I drive them to school, I work, I come home, I do laundry. There is no moment to sit down. There is no moment. And I think a lot of people have done the same way. So of course, going back to what am I running from? As long as we are aware of the things, we can work with it. But it's that, again, if we're not aware, we can't change it, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it comes back to the classical thing, like when you go through your day, where is your mind?
Yeah.
That's where we're at. And I was thinking about what you talked about this past summer, because I had a lot of painful things that happened this summer. And we've touched on this, but I had a horse that was like my best friend. His name is Battle Boots. And at the beginning of the summer, he had a severe colic, and I had surgery, and they took him to the hospital, and we were in Sweden when this happened, and he lives here in New Jersey, and we thought he was getting better, but throughout the summer he was in recovery at our barn, and every day I would check in on him, and I was in so much pain from this, because it's like hard to describe that for people who don't have animals, but he was like my everything. He was my best friend. So this happened in the end of June, and from that moment on, I think I was on my feet. I was on my feet running, because I was in panic mode. And then a few weeks later, I think, you came to visit in Dalarö.
Yeah.
And Louise is sitting on the dock looking out, meditating. She's looking out at the archipelago, Stockholm archipelago. And I cannot even sit down I remember I sat down next to you, and you're like, "Oh, let's sit here for a moment." I'm like, "I gotta go." Like, "No, sit down." And I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go." It's because I had to be on the move, because I was so, I just, all I remember from last summer was that the pain in the top of my abdomen and the chest was like, because then on the same day as you visited, Sally passed away. And we got the call when you were there. My teacher, Sally Kempton, passed away. And so the summer was that. And the only way I can cope is to be busy and be on the move. But then at some point,
can I ask a thing? What happens with the body when we are in that pain?
we're tense. We're shoulders high, the upper abdomen.
Can't breathe.
Can't breathe.
But what energetic
Blockage.
But
right?
where
Like
does
that's,
blockage coming from?
I think it's a lack of breathing, don't you think? Because we're in a fight or flight, so we stop breathing fully. It's the fight or flight state that I
Very,
actually
very
lived in
interesting.
for years. I mean, the way I felt this summer was how I felt for most of my life. Sort of. And what I did is, what I do then is that I eat.
Yeah.
So I started in Sweden. We have these like gingerbread rolls called kanelbulle. And in Sweden, you
I know
drink
you had them
coffee
this
and eat.
summer
And
before too. I'm just telling you.
yeah,
You had
I'm
them
just
every
hold
summer.
on. So at like around 2 in Sweden every day, you have fika, which is like coffee break. And I started the summer with like one kanelbulle, which is like a bun.
I would love
But
that.
then at the end of the summer, I would literally buy a loaf and eat the whole thing. Because it's, that's you're sort of soothing yourself. It's like but it doesn't matter. It's what I needed. But the point I'm making, which was a big breakthrough for me this year, was that I am so used to running from pain, literally. I mean, it's the same thing. Like during the first months of COVID, literally, I was in my kitchen baking or taking the kids to the forest in like a frenzy. Yeah. And until they just said, "Mommy, we don't want to go to the forest anymore," and then we stopped baking, and we haven't baked since like 2020. But what I realized this year, which was the big breakthrough for me, and it's personal, of course, was that Battlewoods was sick for 6 weeks, and then when he died, I mean, I've never been sadder in my whole life. It was awful, and I get teared up every time. But what I realized is that I didn't want to run from the pain of having lost him because he was so important to me. He represented so much on my spiritual path. Like we went through a journey of healing together. He's a horse, and he had to heal from his trauma, and I did it together, and we were like soulmates. So it took a while into the fall, and then around Christmas, I had been meditating a lot in the fall. I realized that that's what had happened, is that because of my love for him, I didn't want to run from not feeling the pain of having lost him.
We need to deepen it a little bit.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes absolutely sense. I'm just interested in
the tools.
That's the result you got. That's what you become aware of.
So the tools, and that's where we come back to how and how of it all. How do we shift this aspect of ourselves? And again, it's like with everything we talk about here, it's like you start small. And maybe there's an awareness of certain aspects of your day where you notice that you're not in the moment and you're on the move and trying to squeeze more things in because you're being on the move is your default setting. Like what do you do to shift? Like Louise, like when you're out and about and you notice this behavior, what are the tools that you use?
Okay, I would say by the whole process that I've been going through right now, this divorce that has been extremely painful for me. And I would say the same thing with you and Battle Boots. It must be that we start to accept the pain with the acceptance of that. I think life sucks big time. It's horrible. It's pain in my chest. I can't breathe. We need to start with that acceptance. And I would actually relate to the first 3 steps in the 12-step program because that's what it is.
Yeah.
We need to surrender to the situation and we need to be with it and trust the process that we have no control over, because the process it's taking the time. Because now when I'm a little bit over on the other side and I feel definitely not emotionally attached to my ex-husband, I feel this freedom, and I could compare it a little bit also to when I had my depression and my stress. That like we need to accept it, and we need to trust that that the body needs to do that work. It's like like you're baking, and you don't really know for how long it's gonna, for long you're gonna cook it, or you know what I mean. It's and I think that's the key, to really be able to surrender to that, because you have no idea it's going to be for a month, it's going to be for 2 months, it's going to be for a year. But then also, one thing that took me through this is there is a setting in one of the Buddhist scholarship from Nietzsche and Daishonin, where he writes, enjoy what it is to enjoy and suffer what it is to suffer. That when we suffer and when there is a pain, not all our areas is in pain. There are a smile
Other
when you look
parts.
at your child or your dog, or the sun is shining, and you may be not emotionally there, but if you tap into that awareness of, okay, there are other things. So it's also about to broaden out your life, so your life doesn't get too narrow.
The thing that I think about when you're talking, and I love this idea to sort of regard other parts of your life. And that's the same thing we talked about at the beginning. It's like, how do we, according to like David Hawkins, like, how do you make a conscious choice to focus on something else at the time? But
conscious choice.
When you say it's important to accept the situation that you're in, what I think about immediately is like, how do we even get to the place when we're able to accept? So what is the step before understanding that there's an awareness of, I have to accept this? Because I think that the running for me happens in a place when I don't even have the awareness that there is a possibility to accept. So it's before. And I believe that usually, and from the experiences that I've had through my life, that's something, it's almost like the universe gives us something to snap us out of it, so that we see, oh, oops, something happens. Somebody tells us something, like you telling me sit down, or, but so I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, if you're at home right now and you're like, I don't really understand what you're talking about, and I think I might be doing that, but I'm not really sure. So when I was thinking about this last night, I it's almost like it's the question, posing the question to oneself, why am I doing this? Or how am I getting through life? It's like self-reflection, like looking at your own actions throughout the day and seeing what comes up. And if there is something that is super painful and that you're trying to deny, I think most of us probably will, it'll come up when we take a, like when we, and it's like the simple stuff. So how do we find this? How do we observe this in our own lives? How do we get that step before accepting? Yeah. She wants to talk.
Yeah, but I have no answer to that. But I would like to say that I think when pain is a great motivation to change.
Yeah.
When the pain is so unbearable, there is no other choice. You need to do a change. And I think maybe the acceptance starts from there. Like when you feel that you got to the rock bottom to this.
Yeah. This is very interesting, because it's that thing. What?
No, it's just what came when.
No, and I now that you're saying that, it's so true, because it's like, if you think about, if I look back and I go, the painful things keep coming until, and I don't know what's going to be next, but I've just gotten used to the fact that there's lessons that come throughout time. And what happened with Battle Boots made me more sad, or more, I've never grieved in the way that I grieved when he passed away, because he was part of my daily life. I saw him every day and he loved me unconditionally. I lost him, so it's awful, right? But and we've talked about this before, like in everything that happens there's value, and there's a lesson to be taught. But
We can
so pain,
create value.
like, we can create value,
Mm.
but pain is the great motivator. I really like that, but I guess that where it's the shift in awareness to seeing them as lessons, but they never feel that way when they're happening in
No.
real time. So it's always, I feel like always in hindsight,
Mm.
always after the fact, I go, oh, okay, this was something that I learned from this. So again, it's a very tricky. It's also like, how do I observe my own actions in life? How do I shift them? And it's almost like the tools have to be the same sort of tools that we always talk about, which is like the breathing, which if you focus on your breath, you will be shifted into the
Mm.
present moment and into greater awareness.
Mm.
And if you are in that state, maybe the opportunity will show itself for you to
Mm.
actually see your own patterns. So, because we always talk about tools here, right? What
Mm.
are the tools I can create more awareness?
But
And
can
from
I?
that awareness, I can accept.
Yeah. But can I bring it back to? I mean, why don't we? Why is the pain? Why are we so afraid of feeling the pain?
Oh, I think
If,
that's
like
too
what,
much.
yeah, but that could also be a question. Why am I so afraid of being in this pain? What's the worst thing? Like self-inquiring, like if I be, what's the worst thing? Well, maybe the pain is so unbearable, so I just want to stop everything. But then of course we need probably some professional help. But now we're talking about our self-healing process, and I think that when pain becomes a motivator to change, for me, it's when I'm realizing I'm becoming a victim in my own life. I don't value myself. I don't honor my true being. And I think that when I honor my true being and I'm not a victim, and I don't want to be a victim, when I feel I'm worthy, then I can cope more with the pain.
Yeah, I think that's very advanced. You
Yeah,
talk,
but yeah,
when I value myself, I
yeah,
think it's hard to get there.
yeah.
I really do. But I think,
But I'm not saying it's an easy,
no, no,
definitely
but
not. But I think that, it's
why am I afraid of being in pain? Is your question. And when I think about that, I believe that it is everybody, all human beings, all animals, we don't like to feel pain of, it hurts. So that's why we're afraid of it, because it doesn't feel good. Emotional, physical, grieving, all of it. Even, I mean, same thing with horses. So or dogs or anything. So we want to check out when we feel bad.
mm,
And I think that is something that we have to fully embrace. We do not like to feel pain. It's okay to not want to. All we're saying here is, how do we process it so that we don't become unconscious to that pain? How do we face that pain so that it doesn't come back to haunt us 10 years later? Because that's what
but
happens
that's
with
the only thing to
emotions.
work it through.
Yeah.
Mm.
And sometimes it's like 5 years later or even 30 years later that we go, oh, okay, maybe this is why I do this thing. I try to please people because it hurts too much to be fearful of them not
Mm.
liking me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's never reality that the people don't like us back. It's just the fear that we have that people don't like us back. And that's why we try to please them.
But
People pleasing.
I also think that now when I mean, if we, when we were young, I know that your school system for Anna and Alice is very different from the school system that we have here. But I think that if children got to know if they could define different kind of feelings from the very early beginning, I think that they will be able to navigate through different layers of pain much easier.
I know, but it's a dream, Louise. That
No, it doesn't have to
somehow
be.
the school.
No, but I think that I wouldn't say it's I think we in one way or another we need to get there.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's not the job of a school. I think that's the job of the parent.
Yeah, but not everyone has parents that has the capability to do that, or the awareness, or the resources to do it. So I actually disagree with you there. I think that the school has an important, and most of the kids spend more time in school than they do at home. And we already started with a little bit of mindfulness in school and stuff like that. And not to forget that children are extremely curious of their body, of their feelings, of their senses, but we don't use it enough. We go into performance straight away. Oh, can you jump that high? Can you do that score? So our focus, of course, should be of more value of the human being and what that is. But I just want to jump to something else, because I think that the pain of, and this is it brought me back to when you said the teenager, the pain of when a boyfriend breaks up with you, or a girlfriend, when that pain.
You mean like when you're young?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be young. It's probably the same, but that pain, I can't compare it to my divorce because it's different, I think, for me. But that pain, when you are madly unhappily in love, and you can't take it. You can't just take it and put it away. It's there. And you can't. I think it's fascinated so much how, like, being heartbroken. What pain is most? It's the most horrible pain in the world.
Yeah, but it's heartbroken can be so many more things than being broken up with by a boyfriend.
Yeah, you can also be madly in love with someone that you don't know that.
Well, I mean, I was heartbroken with Battle Boots died, and I was heartbroken when my dad died.
But you had some tools at that point.
Yes,
you had your practice.
Because when
bringing back to when we went to high school, we had no tools. So that was the drinking.
Yeah, and what you're saying about like schools or parents talking about how we feel in 2024. I mean, that's a different. But like if you're looking, we grew up in the 80s, and if you
70s,
cried,
honey.
I know, but like we were teenagers in the 80s.
Yeah, okay.
And if you cried, you were a sissy.
Yeah.
I mean, it just was like, what's wrong with you? So feelings, emotions were something that you had to feel, that at least I did. I felt ashamed about. I mean, it's like, what's wrong with you? You're not cool. You're crying. So it's a very complex thing. Like, we're not allowed to feel. So we start running from pain. And here we are, like 53 years later, and we're trying to figure out what is going on.
Not allowed to feel, and we're running from pain. Well, that's our.
It's kind of like a loop. It's like a catch-22. So no wonder, no wonder that this is how it all. But I guess for me, the journey has been to understand that that's what I'm doing. And by accepting that that's what I do at times is another, it's another, like another step into freedom from the human condition, is when you can pinpoint and be aware of what I'm doing. Oh, I'm doing this because X. Just there. You can still run, but at least if you know that you're doing it, it's like, oh, it's something shifts. And that's what this year for me has been about. And I do feel like it's I hope that it's a change that will last, or something else will happen. I'll be running then too. We'll see what happens this
Yeah, but
summer.
we're running for something else. We're running for for the
Yeah,
cinnamon bread.
yeah.
But but
The
but
cinnamon, the
but back
kanelbullar, the cinnamon rolls.
Kanelbullen. But back to I think
Yeah,
that um, we discussed a little bit why we can't stay with the pain and how we can cope with it, and this self-questioning or where the pain comes from and stuff like that. as 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 a yoga teacher, I work a lot with the chakras, so I work a lot with
mm,
the different energy centers, and all energy center has some emotions attached to it. And when
yeah,
and when I'm not saying I'm doing this every time, but when I really, I mean, I try to, when I really in a painful situation, I try to sit with it and becoming aware, where in the body do I feel
is
this
it
pain?
hurting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
is it hurting in my throat? And this is so interesting because as soon as I asked my second son things, he was like, "Oh, my throat is hurting. My throat is hurting." When he was younger, but I ask myself, where is the pain? Is it in my belly, solar plexus? Is it in the altar of the heart, in the back of the heart? And when I can locate that pain, I can put my hand there, and then I connect with one of the other chakras, and I can start moving energy in my body, up and down,
hmm,
in and out, maybe 10 times one way, 10 times. And then I can feel that the pain is, it's kind of not going away, but it's not that intense. And then when it's not that intense, it gives me more clarity of, okay, interesting. And as you said, it can brings me back to, I'm ashamed of that, or I feel guilty for this, or I'm fearful for that, or whatever.
yeah. But I think it's an excellent tool. Not, I mean, we don't have to go into the specific chakras, but I think that most of us know that when we feel pain. So let's say that's what we're doing, right? We
Mm,
sit down and we're like, where? It's a question.
mm,
Where
mm,
do I feel the pain in my
mm,
body?
mm,
And most of us, I think, would say that it is at the upper abdomen, tightness in the chest. You talk about the throat a lot,
mm,
which is your big problem area. Louise loses her voice a lot. And just because then you have chosen to objectify the physical pain.
mm,
You separate it from your conscious mind.
mm,
Here's my pain, which makes
mm,
there's a distance, there's a
mm,
space now between your entanglement with your pain
mm,
and the location of the physical pain.
mm,
And in that moment, you've created awareness. So that is a small, also a very, it's very, for me, it's an advanced tool because I
mm,
have like, I'm
mm,
not great with my
mm,
body still to this day. But I think it's like, if we can locate the
mm,
physical pain and breathe,
mm,
we go, okay, that's just a very split second of
mm,
awareness
mm,
into what is this all about.
mm.
So are we gonna,
Are we going to
did
wrap
we
up?
cover, did we cover what it means to run from pain and that it is okay? Like we all do it and it's part of human condition. All we're saying here is why there would be a point to try to shift it
Mm,
is because we want to evolve on our spiritual path, emotional healing. It's one of those things where you sort of, it's good to try to figure out resolving why
mm,
we do the things we do.
mm,
And we've given, if we think about like how to shift these things, we've given a few tools, locating the pain in our body, breathing, which is it's like we're going to talk about breathing.
mm,
Breathe through your nose, everything will be okay. And just having awareness on maybe what is it that I'm doing in my life that makes me run, just having questioning, self-reflecting. And then if we do these things, if we are bring awareness to that we do run from pain, like what will happen? How will that improve your life? I mean, we can end on that.
mm,
Like what are the things that I've noticed
mm,
from this discoveries that I've done this year with, I didn't want to run from the pain of losing bowel movements. And I think it in the end, it's just being more present. That's the
mm,
gift that I've gotten, is that I'm more present and more aware because I could recognize what I was, the unconscious actions that I was in the middle of throughout the summer. And that's presence is the ultimate goal. Do you have anything to add, Louise?
No, I'm just thinking that pain could be very present.
You mean being present with the pain? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're done with the pain. No, it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. But it's also about healing the wounds where the pain comes from.
Yeah. No, it's just, I'm bringing up again. It's like when I talk about battle boots, still to this day, I start crying every time. But it feels.
But that's not. But I would say also, like, if you cry, it's not just for the pain. It's also for the
love.
For the love, and also from missing him and.
But I guess what I'm saying is that if I hadn't, my belief is that if I hadn't processed it in the way that I did, it would have taken me longer to get to the loving tears.
Yeah.
Instead, it would have been a loss that is more dark.
Yeah. I heard something very, and I think this is, we're going to wrap up, but I think this is a nice, Elton had his baptism last weekend, and the priest said,
his what?
When you give him the name, isn't that
baptism? Oh, he was baptized.
Yeah, baptized. And baptême en français. The priest said something, and it goes very along also with the Buddhist practice. But she said that when we look back on life, on the past, if we hold on to it, we start freezing. We need to look forward. We're going to look back and bring the memories with us into the future. And there was that, if you hold on to it, that's when we freeze. And it goes with, in Buddhism, we say, like, if you want to look what happens in your past, look on your living in your present moment. And if you want to have an effect of the future, be aware of the actions in the present. And I think that pain goes very much because very often we hold on to things because we want it to be like it was, even if it maybe wasn't good for us. And that creates even more pain when we hold on to it. So like everything in life, it needs to be organic. It needs to be in a flow. And I think also that we can work with pain in a flow. So because life is full of suffering that will create pain in our life. So, it's also that becoming aware of that attitude of how do I meet pain when it comes in my life.
That's a whole new, but I love what she, that is so awesome what she said, the priest. That is exactly.
And actually just to end up, this new Japanese instructor, I can't remember his name now, but he made this movie, which I went in to see with Holly. It was all in Japanese and subtitled in English, but so she didn't get anything. But the message of that film was actually, someone said, please don't look back. And the woman turned her head and she looks back. And instead of having the good memory, she's having the awful memory of the war. Memory. So it's
So that's a Japanese movie you saw? Do you know what it was called?
I will get back to what it was called because it just came out and it's his last movie and he's absolutely famous.
The director?
Yeah. So I should know.
And you can't remember it? Yeah. No. Okay.
All
right. So we are coming to the end, and we hope that some of the things that we said resonated with you. It is always very, very liberating for me to talk about these things with Louise, because now I can go into my day filled with connection and presence and a saturated soul. So we hope, of course, that that's some of what you feel too. And our podcast is called Awakening Process 101. We explore aspects of awakening and spiritual healing. And my name is Pernilla Berg, and this is Louise Ewell. And we thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much.
Hope you join us again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.